Good morning. It is 6:43 a.m. on Tuesday, February 21st, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. If you hear Luna barking, don't mind her. She's in a mood this morning. Something has gotten her riled up, and she's concerned about enemy activity outside. Tried to reassure her, but she cannot be soothed. It's early. Had to get up early again to, it's back to work today after the holiday weekend. But with Monday off, it's a short week, and then I'm on vacation all next week, so that'll be fun. Looking forward to that. Although it's a creative working vacation where I'll be doing a lot of writing and probably editing. And I've been kind of torn a little bit with how to balance that, because I think in principle what sounds more fun and what I think the usual idea is to be writing rough draft stuff in that sort of setting. And yet it's editing that I have a hard time doing without distractions. And so perhaps I should just get over myself as far as thinking like I should be doing rough draft writing rather than editing at this retreat. I don't know. Anyway, I said yesterday that I was going to talk a little bit about the Expanse and Leviathan Wakes today, so here goes. When I first tried to watch the Expanse back when season 1 first came out, I watched a couple of episodes of it, I think 4, and then just sort of found myself not watching. I was never quite in the mood for the next episode, and then I realized eventually that I had the whole rest of the season just stacked up on my DVR, still not feeling like watching it yet. But when people started getting excited about season 2, I had an Audible credit burning a hole in my pocket, and so I went ahead and I got the first book of the Expanse series as an audiobook, Leviathan Wakes. And I started listening to that, and that kind of caught my interest enough that I made my way through the episodes of the TV show that existed at the time. And so what this produced was an interesting kind of out of sync experiencing of the storytelling, where I'd seen a little bit of the show, and then as I passed the point, and then I listened to the parts of the book that corresponded until I had gotten past where I had seen in the show, and only went a little ways past before then getting caught up on the TV show, and just kind of doing this back and forth where I was listening to the same parts of the story that I had just seen in the TV show or vice versa. And it's interesting. I almost feel like it's the ideal way to consume the story in some ways. There are a number of differences, and most of those differences all can be summarized in the same general way, which is to say, they take things that we only hear about in the book and just actually show them to us in the show. Things, in particular, what makes a lot of sense for why that would be is that the book is written in a third-person limited POV, pretty tight POV that just switches back and forth between the characters of Holden and the character of Miller. And those two characters are certainly prominent, but in the show, you have an ensemble cast, and so it makes more sense that you want to give the other actors and characters something to do and not necessarily only have it be, well, every scene is going to have either Holden or Miller in it. And further, the book doesn't have any depiction whatsoever of what's happening on Earth. And so all of the scenes on Earth with this, I'm forgetting the actress's name, and she's so good. The lady who works for the UN down on Earth. and all of her political intrigue, that part of the show is just not in the book at all. And then likewise, there's a lot of things that happen in the show where we see things get talked out or decided or depicted, whereas in the book, all that happens is, because one of the two POV characters wouldn't necessarily have been present, all we get is we hear them learning about it. And I have to say that I prefer the TV show version. The TV show version also introduces a number of additional little complexities as far as connections between the characters, additional action in certain places rather than just talking. And that's not in any way to say that the book is bad, but only that when placed directly side by side with the show, I think the show is actually better. It's made improvements. And yet, a lot of those improvements are inherent to the medium that it's being told in, because if in the book you tried to have 7 or 8 POV characters so that you could show all of those same scenes in the same way, that's much more difficult to do in a book without getting confusing. Whereas in a show, it's trivial because we see, oh yeah, this is the guy from this scene and he's now going over there away from the other characters. And we're going to follow him, and that's trivial, and you don't have to, whereas in the book you'd be saying, wait, who was this guy again? I don't remember. And so it's the differences in the medium. But I am always just fascinated by that because, certainly as a writer, deciding how to choose a POV character or which way to write the story is tricky. If you start saying, okay, well, I think this should be the POV character, but then how do I depict this scene in an interesting way? Well, okay, do I make that another POV character? Do I make this a loose third person where I can go into anybody's head? That confuses some people too. And then all of these sorts of things, like, there's people who like writing books in present tense instead of past tense. And I can usually roll with that, but it's not my preference generally. And so there's all sorts of these choices to make that are not necessarily, you wouldn't necessarily call them plot questions, and yet they can directly impact how you perceive the plot or how even you're able to tell the story at all. Anyway. So summary though, Leviathan Wakes and The Expanse, both I am enjoying. Well, I finished Leviathan Wakes, which has actually, believe it or not, got me pretty close to where the TV show is right now, although the TV show, I believe, is probably going to go right into whatever would be the second book story. I like it, but it is definitely stuff that's complex enough you really kind of have to be giving it your full attention. If you were trying to do something else at the same time as you watch that show, you'll probably just get lost, and I think that's what happened to me the first time. Anyway, I will talk to you guys tomorrow for 5 more minutes.